After 6 months of silence, I revealed their shocking policy and transformed my future forever. It was a frigid autumn morning when Sarah stumbled into her kitchen, the scent of burnt toast clinging to the air like failure. She was exhausted, her last shift at the hospital bleeding into another day of juggling her 2 kids, Mia and Jake. The soft chime of the school bell threatened to cut through her groggy mind, pushing her to act faster. Just 6 hours prior, she'd been wiping sweat from a fevered child's brow, wondering how her own children were managing without her. Today felt heavier than ever. The weight of her nursing job, a calling that now felt more like a burden, pressed on her chest. For months, a policy at the hospital had fueled her thoughts with silent rage, a policy that treated nurses like cogs in a machine, disregarding their humanity. The injustice of it all felt like a shadow that followed her into every room, a constant reminder that the system she was working for was slowly eating her alive. As she bundled Jake's coat, she noticed the neighbor, Carol, watching from her window. Carol, a woman she considered a friend, had sworn she'd help while Sarah was at work. But the whispers that echoed in their small community implied otherwise. It turned Sarah's stomach. How could someone she trusted betray her like this? "Mommy, I can't find my shoe," Mia cried, pulling her from her dark thoughts. Sarah's heart ached as she searched for a lost shoe while holding her breath, desperate to keep frustration at bay. She yelled down the hall, "Mia, check the toy box." The rush of daily chaos felt never-ending. Mornings like this were a delicate dance of love and exhaustion. But history was pushing her toward something larger. That betrayal from Carol ignited a flicker deep inside her. Maybe it was time to show her town what was really happening at the hospital, to voice the struggles they all faced, to confront the standing barriers that kept them from thriving. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The town hall meeting was buzzing with life as she walked in. Sarah's palms were clammy with fear, her heart racing like a jackhammer. When the moment came for her to speak, she stood before the crowd on trembling legs. The faces staring back, the kind, familiar but once distant, now felt like a community united. With every word, the doubt slipped away, replaced by fire as she spoke of the grueling nights, the exhaustion, the sacrifices her fellow nurses made while feeling betrayed by the very people they served. As she began to reveal the shortcomings of the policy, a ripple of murmurs washed over the crowd. She felt the energy shift. People leaned in. Hope blossomed in her heart, but soon doubts clawed at her mind. Could they really stand together? In that poignant moment when she finished speaking, the echoes of her words hung in the air. Silent sighs turned into whispers of support. Her heart pounded with anticipation. Would she finally see the change that so desperately needed to happen? And just as she stood there, uncertain of what to do next, unexpected allies stepped forward, people she had never imagined would stand with her. An unthinkable unity began to rise, and with it, Sarah faced the question that would define her future. Could this community, fractured yet hopeful, truly come together to fight for justice? The room filled with a new energy, and she felt the stirrings of something powerful about to unfold. The air buzzed with excitement, a current that surged through the room as Sarah stood there, her breath catching in her throat. The warmth of solidarity wrapped around her like a soft blanket, pushing back the cold doubts she had harbored for so long. People she had known for years were now her allies, and she dared to hope for change, for justice, for a voice that had been silenced too long. Mark, a fellow nurse and one of the first to step forward, his square jaw set with determination, raised his hand. "We need to organize a petition. Let us lay this policy bare and demand accountability," he suggested, his voice steady and clear. A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd, followed by the rustling of papers and the clatter of chairs being moved. Sarah watched in awe as the discontent brewed into action. Her heart swelled, a mix of pride and disbelief flooding her senses. But doubt still danced at the back of her mind. What if this isn't enough? She thought. What if they silence us? "Sarah, we got your back," whispered Lisa, who had fought alongside her during long shifts. "Together we'll make them listen." The room erupted into a symphony of voices, each person chiming in with their stories of sacrifices made, families affected, and nights they had spent on call, skin aching for a chance to rest. Let us hold a rally. We can reach the entire community, show them what's happening behind those walls, shouted a voice from the back. Excited faces turned to Sarah for guidance, and she felt the weight of their hopes pressing upon her. Let us do it, she finally breathed, the fire within her igniting. We'll gather stories, we'll make flyers, and we'll stand together. But we need to be prepared for backlash. This is going to be a fight. As the meeting progressed, plans solidified into action. They split into groups, each person taking on a role, the energy escalating until it felt unstoppable. Sarah moved through the crowd, her heart dancing with anticipation and fear, checking in with everyone, feeling the beat of unity surge around her. However, as the crowd began to disperse, a nagging thought refused to let go of her mind. The night air, crisp and biting, ushered her back into reality. What would happen when the hospital administration caught wind of their plans? Would they try to crush the movement before it even gained traction? Sarah glanced at Mia and Jake, who were now waiting for her outside, bundled against the cold. Their innocent smiles reminded her of all that was at stake. She needed this fight not just for them, but for every caregiver feeling trapped beneath the weight of a broken system. Just as she turned to leave, a familiar figure caught her eye. Carol, standing at the meeting room door, a conflicted expression stretched across her face. She hesitated before stepping forward into the light, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah's heart raced. Was she here as an enemy, or as a friend willing to mend the rift? The tension thickened in the air. What would Carol say? Would she seek forgiveness or add to Sarah's burden? Everything around them felt suspended, anticipation thick and electric. And just like that, Sarah stood on the brink of a break, where old relationships could fracture or rekindle. The stakes had never felt higher. What would happen next? Carol stepped forward, her hands fidgeting nervously at her sides. The fluorescent lights flickered above, casting an uneasy glow on their faces. Sarah could see the conflict in Carol's eyes, the fear, the regret, the longing to connect again. This was the moment of truth, and the room around them, once buzzing with hope, froze in anticipation. Sarah, Carol began, her voice trembling slightly. I've been thinking about everything that's happened. I didn't mean to turn my back on you. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken history. Then why did you? Sarah couldn't hide the hurt that edged her voice. There it was, the pent-up frustration, the betrayal that stung even more because it came from someone she once trusted. I was scared. They made it sound like we'd be risking our jobs, our security. I didn't know how to stand with you. But seeing everyone come together tonight, I wish I had summoned the courage to do this sooner. Carol's honesty spilled out like a dam breaking, and in that moment, Sarah felt a crack begin to form in her own resolve. You're not alone anymore, Sarah replied, her voice softening. If you want to stand with us now, we could really use you. But you need to understand it's going to be hard. There will be pushback, and I can't promise it'll be safe. The others watching held their breath, not wanting to disrupt this fragile exchange. I understand, Carol said, her eyes fierce with determination. If I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. I want to fight for what's right. Sarah's heart murmured in response. It was a risk, but there was promise in Carol's resolve. All right then, she nodded, feeling a mixture of hope and caution. Join us. We need all hands on deck. The two women stepped closer to each other, the distance between them narrowing. For a brief moment they were united by a common purpose, their past grievances lessening in the face of a larger fight. With the meeting officially over, Sarah pulled out her phone, fingers trembling as she sent a text to the group. The rally is on. Date and time to follow. Let us get to work. As they stepped outside into the biting cold, Sarah felt the warmth of new beginnings. But as they walked back, a sinking feeling settled deep in her stomach. What if the administration decided to retaliate? What if they dismissed their voices and doubled down on the policies that cut so deep? Intrusive thoughts danced around her mind. What if this spiraled out of control? She pondered. What if we were just signing our own resignation letters? Suddenly a loud honk pierced the night. A car sped past, its headlights cutting the darkness. The blare shook her from her thoughts. She turned around to see Mark hurrying toward them, his face a mask of urgency. Hey, I just heard there's an emergency meeting at the hospital. The administration's on high alert, and they're planning something. We need to be ready. Sarah's heart raced. The stakes were rising. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about their very right to speak up. Together they had awakened a sleeping giant. Let us gather everyone first thing in the morning, Sarah commanded, the fire igniting once again in her core. It's time we show them we're not afraid. As they huddled together, the weight of uncertainty pressed upon them like an anvil. Was this the calm before the storm? Or the dawning of a new fight each of them was determined to win? The feeling of unity was electric, but with every heartbeat, Sarah felt the clouds of doubt gather. The road ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger. Would they truly stand with her? She thought. The flickering street lamp cast long shadows as Sarah looked back at her friends. What lay ahead could change everything, and the thrill of it mixed with her fear. Would this bold move be their salvation, or their undoing? Tomorrow promised confrontation, and Sarah felt the pulse of destiny quicken around her. As they walked forward into the unknown, one question lingered in the air. Would they find their strength, or would they crumble under the weight of their own courage? The sun tried to break through the clouds the next morning, but it didn't quite succeed. The gray sky matched the tension humming in the air as Sarah gathered the group. Each member's expression told a different story. Determination, fear, hope, and anxiety swirled together, creating a powerful mix that buzzed like static electricity. All right, everyone, Sarah began, her voice steady despite the nerves twisting inside her. Today we're taking a stand. She glanced around, gauging their readiness. We all know what's at stake. Emily, standing near the back, whispered, what if they really do retaliate? What if we lose our jobs? Sarah felt the weight of those words. She knew they had every right to be scared. After all, life didn't always provide safety nets. But they also didn't have to face this battle alone, and that was what they had to remember. Fear is no reason to back down, another member, David, interjected. If we don't show up today, it's like letting them walk all over us. We deserve better than that. The group nodded, rallying behind David's words. A flicker of hope ignited in Sarah's heart. These people weren't just her co-workers. They were family bound together by shared struggles and dreams. If they faced this storm united, perhaps they could weather it together. Let us go through the plan, Sarah said, pulling out her prepared notes. She felt a wave of courage wash over her. We'll meet at the front entrance of the hospital at lunchtime. We need to show our numbers our resolve. The more of us they see, the harder it will be for them to ignore us. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, the fear overshadowed by a growing sense of purpose as they finalized details. Sarah's mind drifted. She couldn't shake off the gnawing anxiety that piled on top of their plans. What if they were sabotaged? What if someone let slip a secret they'd agreed to keep? More troubling was the thought of losing Carol again. What if her resolve wavered? But when Sarah turned to her, she saw a flicker of determination in Carol's eyes that had been absent for so long. We'll rise together, Carol whispered, just loud enough for only Sarah to hear. The warmth of her words wrapped around Sarah like a comforting blanket. The clock ticked closer to noon, and Sarah's heart raced. When it was finally time to leave, the group converged like an electric current, flowing down the hallway. Their footsteps echoed around them, a mix of anxiety and excitement drumming in their chests. As they reached the entrance, Sarah took a deep breath. The sunlight fought its way through the clouds, illuminating their faces with a soft glow. In that moment, she saw courage reflected back at her. But just as they were about to step outside, a crowd of suited administrators appeared blocking the exit. The tension in the air thickened, their stern expressions cold as the wind. Where do you think you're going? One of them asked, arms crossed, a smirk spreading across his lips. Just like that, the world shrunk to that moment. Sarah's heart thudded loudly in her chest. Would they push through together, or would they bow to fear? The seconds ticked by, a heavy silence hovering over them, amplifying each heartbeat. Together, Sarah whispered, squeezing Carol's hand. Would that be enough to turn the tide? The next moments could change everything, and the choice laid before them was clear. Would they break through the wall of intimidation? Or would the administration silence them once more? The air crackled with tension as the administrators stood like stonewall sentinels, arms crossed, blocking the sunlight with their imposing figures. Sarah felt every heartbeat echoing in her ears, so loud she wondered if everyone else could hear it too. Would they really stand firm? "Remember why we're here," David said, breaking the suffocating silence. His voice carried a spark of defiance that spilled over into the group like a fire igniting dry grass. "This isn't just about today. This is for every time they've ignored us, every unfair shift, every moment we've been undervalued." Sarah looked at her colleagues, breathing in their determination. She saw Emily clutching her notepad tightly, knuckles white with tension, while Carol stood resolute. It was a small ocean of combined strength, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope swell within her. The smirking administrator shifted, eyeing them as if they were children caught playing in a forbidden area. "You have no right to disrupt operations. I suggest you turn around," he sneered, trying to sow seeds of doubt. "Who's disrupting operations?" Carol burst out, her voice trembling but fierce. "We're not just numbers on a schedule. We have rights." The anger in Carol's words struck a chord, stirring the crowd. With each shout of support, "Yes, and keep going," the group seemed to gain weight, an unstoppable force pushing against authority. The administrators may have had their suits, but Sarah felt the strength of the collective standing behind her, backing her every inch. "Let us stand together," Sarah called out, feeling the electric pulse of unity rush through her veins. "We're not just employees, we're humans, and we deserve a voice." Every person in line echoed back, their voices rising like a wave crashing against the shore. They weren't backing down. Sarah's heart quickened as the group surged forward, an unstoppable tide, ready to push through those barriers. The path was grim, but with each step they took, they felt more alive, more determined. One of the administrators shifted, visibly shaken by the sudden anger and unity faced against him. "Stop. This is ridiculous," he yelled, but Sarah pressed on, leading the charge as the sounds of their unified strength roared into the air. All at once, fear was transformed into something else entirely: power. With a sudden shove, they pushed past them, breaking through the barrier of indifference. It was as if the dam had finally broken. Cheers erupted. The sunlight flooded back in, illuminating their faces, showing resolve, power, and hope. They had crossed an invisible line as they spilled onto the hospital steps. Sarah could hardly believe what was happening. She had anticipated resistance, but they had met it with solidarity. She felt lightheaded and full of purpose, a paradox of fear and exhilaration coursing through her. But the moment of triumph, however sweet, was short-lived. Sarah's eyes widened as she spotted a small group of reporters approaching the scene, notebooks in hand, ready to capture the moment. This unexpected audience could amplify their message to the entire community, a chance to spread their story beyond these walls. But conflicting thoughts raced through her mind. What if they asked questions? What if her coworkers weren't ready for the media presence? "Sarah," Carol called, snapping her back to the moment. "They're here for us." Taking a deep breath, Sarah took a step forward as the cameras focused on her. This was it, the opportunity they had been waiting for. But as the voices around her faded to a dull roar, she realized she had to make a choice. Would she take the plunge and reveal everything, even the details that could change their futures forever? Or would she hold back, protecting her friends from the uncertain consequences? The stakes just got higher, and the spotlight was on her. The moment of truth was rapidly approaching. Sarah's heart raced as the cameras snapped to life, the bright lights reflecting off her flushed skin. She felt exposed, as if everyone could see her every thought, every doubt, every trepidation bubbling beneath her determined facade. This was at a crossroads in her life, where courage lingered just beyond her reach. Hi," she managed, her voice a shaky whisper that echoed against the stone steps. Instantly, it felt clumsy amidst the fervor that surrounded them. She glanced back at her colleagues. Their faces were a mix of fear and expectation. Emily's eyes were wide. Carol was nodding as if to urge her on, but Sarah felt the weight of their hopes pressing heavily against her. The reporter stepped forward, a look of curiosity and determination in her eyes. "Can you tell us what you're fighting for?" she asked, her voice smooth as silk. The crowd hushed slightly, anticipating Sarah's response. "We're fighting for our rights," Sarah exclaimed, finding strength in the familiarity of the words. "For fair treatment. For acknowledgement. We're tired of being undervalued. We want to be seen as people, not mere numbers." As the words spilled out, It felt like a wave of relief rushed over her. The crowd erupted once more, chanting slogans in rhythmic unison. A genuine fire now burned within her chest, pushing aside any lingering doubts. She caught a glimpse of David raising his fist, his shout harmonizing with hers. The solidarity ignited the moment. But then came the barrage of questions from the reporters, sharp and unyielding. Can you specify how you feel undervalued? What specific actions are you demanding? What will happen if you don't get them? The intensity of it all loomed large, and for a fleeting second, uncertainty flickered behind her confidence. Details can be daunting, she began, drawing in a deep breath. But let me tell you what that feels like. Her words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. It feels like working overtime without recognition. It feels like sacrificing our health for shifts that drain us emotionally and physically. We want our voices in decision-making. We want to share our stories, not just be a line on a spreadsheet. Cheers erupted again, and Sarah noticed the energy shift among her coworkers. They were no longer just witnesses. They appeared emboldened, ready for the fight they had commenced together. Great, we're making an impact, Carol shouted from the back, her spirit unwavering, filling Sarah with more conviction. The reporter nodded but pressed further. And what if the administration retaliates? What if they silence you? The question struck hard, sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. She glanced around. This struggle was clawing at the very heart of their community. It was about more than just them. It affected the families they went home to, the friends they had outside of work. They couldn't retreat now, not when the air had changed. It was too electrifying. If they try to silence us, Sarah replied, her voice growing stronger, they'll be met with even more resistance. We're not going away. We will not be intimidated. We are standing our ground as a united front. As she finished, she saw a flicker of recognition in the reporter's eyes, a glint of understanding. Maybe this wasn't just about them anymore, but about others in their community who felt unheard, muzzled by discomfort. Is this fight worth the risk, Sarah? The reporter asked, her pen poised over her notebook, leaning in closer like everyone else. Sarah hesitated just a moment longer, scanning the faces in the crowd for support and assurance. It's more than worth it. Sometimes risking everything is the only way to create change. Sometimes it's all you have. And we've had enough silence. The cameras captured the moment, the crowd roaring their approval. Could they really change everything with just a voice? The question lingered in the air, heavy but urgent, as the light dimmed around them, leaving shadows flickering just like their hopes. What would happen next, as momentum built and the world started to listen? Was she prepared for the storm this would bring? As Sarah stood, adrenaline rushing through her veins, she realized the significance of this moment was only beginning. The journey ahead was daunting, but it felt distinctly like the first breath before a plunge into uncharted waters. Would they float or sink? Only time would tell. The days that followed the rally were both exhilarating and exhausting. Sarah felt the pulse of change thrumming through her veins, yet she was acutely aware of the weight of anticipation. The community buzzed with conversation. This wasn't just a protest. It was the beginning of a revolution. Emails and messages poured in from sympathizers and allies, all demanding more transparency and more action. As she walked into the break room that morning, the air felt charged, thick with unspoken words. Carol and Emily were already huddled around the table, their coffee mugs forgotten. Both looked up as Sarah entered, and Carol's grin was infectious. Did you see the coverage? Carol exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. We're trending on social media. What does that mean for us? Sarah asked, her excitement tempered by uncertainty. She had seen stories go viral before, yet little change came from them. It means people are listening, Emily replied, her voice steady. And we have a chance to drive this conversation forward. But as motivating as their enthusiasm was, uncertainty loomed in Sarah's mind. Would this attention last? With the whirlwind of emotion surrounding their protest, she feared that once the cameras left, so would the interest. Determined, she picked up her phone, scrolling through the messages that waited for her. Among them, a surprising note caught her eye. It was from a local journalist named Max, someone she had never met, but whose work she admired for years. His message was direct. I'd like to discuss your fight. I want to help amplify your message. Her heart raced at the thought of attracting the kind of attention that could truly push their cause forward. But alongside excitement was apprehension. Would sharing their story come with consequences? What if the administration clamped down harder because of it? Who is that from? Carol inquired, glancing over her shoulder, curiosity piqued. It's a reporter wanting to talk. Sarah hesitated, weighing the risk. But I'm wondering if that's a good idea. Of course it is. Emily jumped in, her posture now animated. This could be exactly what we need. But we have to be careful. In that moment the stakes felt higher than ever. The fight was no longer just about their rights. It was about accountability, justice, and ultimately, their freedom to speak without fear. Could they really navigate this new terrain without stumbling? Let us meet with him, Carol suggested. But we'll keep it close and make sure everyone knows what's on the table. Sarah nodded, a feeling of resolve washing over her. They needed a plan, they needed unity. If they were to step out into the light one more time, they had to prepare for what came next, because this time they weren't just looking to be heard, they were ready to be seen as agents of change. As she put her phone down, Sarah tried to quell the apprehension swirling within. After all, being brave meant plunging into unknown waters, didn't it? The fire in her chest ignited again as she envisioned how the narrative could shift if they told their stories boldly and authentically. All right, she finally said, lifting her chin. I'll reach out to him. But we have to be strategic. The group nodded in agreement, camaraderie sparking with renewed vigor. However, as she stepped away from the break room, anxiety mingled with excitement. What would they uncover about their work environment? What could be the repercussions? But the deeper question nagged at her. If they pushed hard enough, could they unlock the secrets buried under layers of silence? That night, as the shadows of uncertainty crept back in, Sarah lay awake, wondering what awaited them just beyond the horizon. What truths had the administration hidden? Were they ready for those truths, whatever they might be? In the quiet of her room, she committed herself to this road. Change was never easy, but it was always worth it. Tomorrow they would begin their next chapter. But as she drifted off to sleep, a tightening in her chest spoke of the battle still ahead. The morning sun spilled through Sarah's bedroom window, chasing away the remnants of her restless night. With each ray of light, her resolve hardened. She couldn't wait any longer. If they were to bring the fight to the next level, they had to act now. She picked up her phone. Her fingers moved with purpose, tapping out a message to Max. Hi Max. I'd love to talk. Can we meet today? A deep breath escaped her as she hit send. Would he understand the urgency? Would he respect their need for caution? Her heart thudded in her chest as she waited for his reply, each second stretching into eternity. Meanwhile, Carol and Emily were already meeting downstairs in the office. Sarah joined them, where the atmosphere buzzed with a mix of excitement and anxiety. An impromptu meeting began to form around their small table, a gathering of people fueled by a shared purpose. Everyone's faces bore a mixture of eagerness and apprehension, a reflection of what lied ahead. We can't keep pretending everything is fine, Carol began, her voice quaking as she spoke, but her eyes sparkling with determination. We have to focus our narrative. We can show the administration that we want to be silenced. Emily nodded, rubbing her temples. But we also have to address how the administration will respond to any publicity. We've seen what they've done to others. We might be putting ourselves at risk. Their voices overlapped, revealing a deep concern that resonated in Sarah's heart. She opened her mouth to speak, but the weight of their worries momentarily choked her words. Could they truly navigate this minefield without getting trapped? Just then her phone buzzed on the table, cutting through the tension like a knife. It was Max. Let us meet at the cafe on 5th. 2 p.m. works for me? Relief flooded through her. He was on board. With haste she shared the news, feeling the mood shift positively. It sparked excitement, igniting a fire within them to prepare for what lay ahead. As the hour hand inched closer to 2 p.m., they discussed what stories they wanted to share and how to frame their narrative, their truths woven together like a tapestry of voices. But the anticipation morphed into something heavier as they crafted their plans. Who would speak? What would they reveal? Each word felt like a stone they would cast into a pond, rippling out into an unknown future. Her mind raced. They could trigger change, but if they chose incorrectly, they might face severe backlash. As Sarah arrived at the cafe, The clang of coffee cups and the murmur of conversations filled the air. She spotted Max at a corner table, his notebook open and pen in hand, ready for the discussion. His easy smile put her partially at ease, but the anxiety in her gut remained. "Hey Sarah. Thanks for meeting with me," he said, his voice warm and inviting. She slid into the chair across from him, her pulse quickening. This was the opportunity to take their fight beyond the confines of their community. "Thanks for reaching out, Max," she replied, forcing her voice to steady as she glanced around, half expecting someone to overhear. "We really want to inform people of what's been happening behind closed doors." Max leaned in closer, his interest piqued. "I've been following your group's journey since the rally. I think there's a powerful story here that others will resonate with. But we have to be careful, some truths can be tough to reveal." As they spoke, the world outside blurred. Sarah felt herself opening up, revealing the layers of their struggle, the harsh realities of working in a culture of silence and fear. Each detail poured out like a dam breaking, and the thrill of being heard started to overshadow her initial fears. But just as the conversation built momentum, Sarah's phone vibrated again, pulling her focus. It was a message from Carol. "They know you met with a reporter. Be careful." Her heart raced as she exchanged glances with Max. Had they already started watching her? What would happen next? Questions tumbled through her mind like a storm, and in that moment, she realized the game had changed. There was no turning back now. The conversation with Max could set a new direction, but that came at a cost she wasn't sure they were ready to pay. As she swallowed hard, the intense weight of the moment pressed down on her. One decision could alter their lives forever. Was she prepared for that? Out there beyond the cafe's threshold, shadows gathered. Progress was a double-edged sword, and Sarah felt its sharpness keenly. But in the depths of her fear, the flicker of hope burned brighter. What awaited her on the other side of this confrontation could be transformational. It was inescapable. She had stepped onto the battlefield. The question lingered in her heart. What shocking truths would be unveiled? And could they withstand the fallout when the world finally learned what lay hidden in the darkness? Max raised an eyebrow at Sarah, sensing the shift in her demeanor. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concern etching lines across his forehead. She forced a smile, but her mind was racing. "Yeah, just a message from Carol." She hesitated, unsure how much to share. Caution was now more vital than ever. "Just about our plans. I don't want to get ahead of myself." Max nodded slowly, but there was a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "I get it. The stakes are high." Gathering herself, Sarah leaned into the conversation, tugging her thoughts away from the anxiety that threatened to drown her. "We're ready to tell our side. We have to show that silence doesn't equal compliance." "Exactly. Your story could inspire others," Max said. "But we need a game plan. What's the next step?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah thought back to their earlier discussions. "We need to go public with our stories, yes. But we also need to prepare for the backlash. I can't shake the feeling that they might try to bury us before we even get started." As they delved deeper into strategy, mapping out potential reactions, and planning responses, Max's pen danced across the pages of his notebook. He was invested, which fueled Sarah's resolve. She could see it in his eyes, the same fire that burned within her group. They weren't just telling their story, they were igniting a spark for change. Just as they began brainstorming specific angles, a figure approached their table. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It was Kelly, one of the administration's higher-ups, scanning the cafe. "Max, keep your voice down," Sarah hissed, instinctively glancing around, her pulse quickening. "I'll keep it low," he replied, his tone shifting as he caught sight of her tension. But Kelly's presence felt suffocating. The tension between them thickened as she continued her path across the cafe. Sarah's heart pounded like a drum in her chest. "Maybe we should," Sarah stammered, her thoughts swirling. But in that moment, she felt a sudden surge of courage. "No. Let her go. We can't hide from them forever." Max nodded, impressed by her defiance. "You're right. They expect us to be afraid." The air between them crackled, fueled by a mix of fear and determination. The cafe felt like an arena where they were gearing up for battle. "Let us stick to our plan," Sarah suggested. "I want my truth to be bold and clear." As Max jotted down quick notes, a sense of solidarity enveloped them. Together, they were more than individuals, they were a movement. But then, just as they felt empowered, Sarah's phone buzzed again. This time it was a picture message from Carol, a screenshot of a tweet that sent ice racing through her veins. Looks like some of us know who's been shaking things up in the press. Spill the truth. The gnawing fear came flooding back. They knew. The administration already had eyes on her group. What if they took preemptive action? What if they tried to discredit or retaliate against them? Sarah. What's wrong? Max's voice pulled her back from the brink. Her throat was dry, and she struggled to find the words. They're watching us. We need to be smarter. If we strike now, we have to be ready for the consequences. What if they come after us legally? Or worse? Max's expression shifted to one of resolve. Then we need to prepare for that too. You guys have allies, right? Yes, but anxiety wrapped around her words, threatening to choke her. There's also a chance we won't all get out unscathed. His eyes bore into hers, filled with conviction. Maybe that's a risk we have to take. As uncertainty loomed over them, Sarah caught a glimpse of her reflection in a nearby window. The woman looking back was a stranger and yet familiar. She was stronger now, but what would it cost her? With each passing second, the realization dawned that their fight was no longer just about them. It was about everything they believed in. But buried beneath that resolve was fear, the fear of what might happen next. She locked eyes with Max, a silent understanding passing between them. They had to move forward. They had to press on. And as they dug deeper into their next steps, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling resting uneasily in her heart. What would happen when everything was laid bare? What truths were they willing to say aloud, and at what price? Suddenly, her phone rang and Sarah's breath hitched. It was Carol again. She answered, anxiety lacing her voice. What is it? Meet me at the office. Now. We need to talk before it's too late. Her stomach dropped. Had the administration cracked down already? Time was running out, and with it, their chance to change everything. What awaited her in that meeting could shatter their plans or bolster them for the fight ahead. Would they be ready for whatever came next? Keenly aware of the stakes, Sarah felt both dread and exhilaration. As she and Max hurriedly exchanged plans, an overwhelming question loomed. Were they truly prepared for the fallout that accompanied their next revelation? As Sarah rushed to the office, the weight of urgency tugged at her like a heavy anchor. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of a precipice, where one misstep could send them tumbling into chaos. The corridors felt longer, each step echoing her increasing anxiety. What was happening behind closed doors? When she entered the break room, Carol was already there, pacing like a caged animal, her brows furrowed with concern. They're on to us. I overheard one of the HR reps talking with administration about the rally. They're worried about the attention we're getting, and they're planning retaliation, she said, her voice shaky but firm. Sarah felt her heart race. This was it, the moment of truth. Retaliation? Sarah repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. What do they intend to do? We have to prepare. They might start by discrediting us. Maybe threaten our jobs or label us as troublemakers, Carol warned, her eyes blazing with urgency. No way, Sarah said, her voice rising. I can't let them smear our hard work. We have to respond, show them we're stronger than their intimidation tactics. A fire ignited in her chest, and she could see a flicker of that same determination in Carol's eyes. This was about more than holding on to their jobs. It was about standing up against a system that treated their humanity as disposable. They gathered their allies in the break room. Emily, Mark, and David joined, each face a mask of resolve. We need to draft a statement, something strong that highlights our message. Let us gather our stories again and solidify our stand. We can't let them silence us, Sarah declared, her spirit renewed with purpose. What if they come for us individually? What if they try to scare us? David asked, concern etched on his face. Then we stick together. We form a united front, Sarah replied, each word leaving her lips like a blade cutting through the fears that threatened to bind her. The more they attack, the louder we become. It's time to show them the power of solidarity. As they began crafting their messages, she felt the room pulsing with energy. Each person's voice joined together, weaving a collective tapestry of their experiences. Each word dripped with both the anguish of past struggles and the promise of hope. They could fearlessly unveil their truths to the world. Hours blended as they collaborated, the atmosphere alive with purpose. When they finished, a sense of exhilaration washed over Sarah, grounding her amidst the chaos. "This is our truth. We can own our story. Together," she said. Just then her phone buzzed again. It was Max. A quick note to remind them that their story was making waves and could go live soon. "Everyone is waiting to hear from us," he texted. The camaraderie in the room felt electric, but mingled with apprehension. What would happen next? How would the administration react to their newfound voice, their burgeoning movement? "Do we go through with this?" Emily asked, her voice tinged with doubt. "Tomorrow," Sarah said, feeling the weight of commitment pressing on her shoulders. "Tomorrow we step into the light, and they can either choose to acknowledge us or face the power of our collective action." The moment lingered heavy in the room, silence wrapping around them like a comforting shroud. They looked at each other, seeing not just colleagues but a chosen family, their destinies intertwined with a shared mission. As the sun dipped below the horizon, coloring the world in warm golds and reds, they realized that this was not just a battle for their rights. It was a fight for dignity, for nursing, for every healthcare worker feeling pushed aside. The next day dawned, the clouds seemingly parting to bless their cause with sunlight. As they gathered outside the hospital, Sarah felt the collective heartbeat of her team, every hand linked together, their resolve creating a barrier against fear. "Are we ready?" Sarah asked, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Yes," they shouted back, the unity trembling in the air. Their statement had gone live, the community buzzing with energy. Whispers of support from unknown allies began to surface, like threads of hope stitching their collective narrative, the winds carrying their message far and wide. And then the administrators emerged, faces tight, masking panic beneath bravado. "What is the meaning of this?" one of them barked, though their eyes flickered with uncertainty. "This is our voice. This is our unity. We deserve to be heard." Sarah's voice rang out clear and defiant as it soared above them like a clarion call. As they stood together, watching the uncertainty flicker across the administrators' faces, Sarah couldn't help but think how far they'd come, how much they'd grown since that frigid autumn morning filled with doubt. The shadows began to recede, and a new day was dawning. The battle would rage on, but they felt a thrilling anticipation vibrating beneath their feet. They were stronger, united, and ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Sarah looked at Carol, her ally and friend, who stood shoulder to shoulder with her, and smiled wide, a radiant expression brimming with triumph. It was a moment of clarity, a realization that they were transformed, no longer cogs in a machine but fierce advocates for change. As they stepped forward toward the unknown, hand in hand, they stepped into the light, ready to take on the fight that could change their futures forever. Now this is the moment for you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now, it really feeds the algorithm and helps others discover this powerful journey. Comment your reactions and feelings about this transformative ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and fight for change. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us make our voices heard.